The TPP, I know you talked about it, it's been generating some protests here in your country, including another one today. Chief concern being some worries of higher costs of medical supplies in particular. Was wondering if you could comment on those protests and the concern that somehow you're being bullied into the TPP by the United States. Do you feel that way on that front? Thank you.
Well, even though it wasn't directed to me, I'm going to say one thing about TPP, this notion somehow that some protests here might indicate the U.S. bullying. Keep in mind, I got protests back home from my own party about TPP. So there's never been a trade deal in which somebody is not going to, at some point, object because they're fearful of the future or they're invested in the status quo. And I think it's just very important for everybody to wait and see what exactly is the agreement that has been negotiated before folks jump to conclusions. You take an issue like drugs, for example. The United States does extraordinary work in research and development and providing medical breakthroughs that save a lot of lives around the world. Those companies that make those investments in that research oftentimes want a return. And so there are all kinds of issues around intellectual property and patents and so forth. At the same time, I think we would all agree that if there's a medicine that can save a lot of lives, then we got to find a way to make sure that it's available to folks who simply can't afford it as part of our common humanity. And both those values are reflected in the conversations and negotiations that are taking place around TPP. So the assumption somehow that right off the bat, that's not something we're paying attention to, that reflects lack of knowledge of what is going on in the negotiations. So but my point is, you shouldn't be surprised if there are going to be objections, protests, rumors, conspiracy theories, political aggravation around a trade deal. You've been around long enough, Chuck. That's true in Malaysia. It's true in Tokyo. It's true in Seoul. It's true in the United States of America. And it's true in the Democratic Party. So I continue to strongly believe, however, that this is going to be the right thing to do. Creating jobs, creating businesses, expanding opportunity for the United States, and it's going to be good for countries like Malaysia that have been growing rapidly but are interested in making that next leap to the higher value aspects of the supply chain that can really boost income growth and development.
I'd just like to echo what President Obama said. Emphatically, in no uncertain terms, we went to the TPP on our own accord. We were not bullied into it, and I can attest to our commitment towards free trade as a principle and philosophy, because we have entered into 13 separate FTA agreements with other countries. So Malaysia is a great believer in free trade, but we also understand that the benefits of free trade, like boosting trade, creating wealth, jobs, those are the good things. But there will be some losers in the process. There'll be winners and losers. But overall, the benefit, I think, is important for us to show to the people in Malaysia that the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages of a free trade agreement. And this is what, in the final analysis, what we have to do, because the underpinning to a free trade agreement would be acceptance by the people. And we have committed to that process. We'll engage with the public, and we also present it to Parliament. So we are working out around the sensitivities and challenges which I alluded to in my discussions with President Obama. He fully understands our domestic sensitivities, and we will sit down and try to iron this out with the intention of trying to work out a deal in the near future.